special.
This would be Thursday, April 16th, advanced class, as we're going to talk about the book report and then get into our gospel according to Larry. As far as the book report goes, on the white sheet, this is what you are going to need to fill out for tomorrow. So when you come in, you will have the first 5 items on there. Well, technically 10 if you count the explanations. Things in there filled out. For each one, you're going to tell me for the first 3 headlines, the headline, and why it's important to your story. If you just tell me, because it is, no. You have to actually explain how it connects to what's going in there, and you're going to have to convince me. If you don't convince me, you're out of luck. So those are the first 3. Then for your 2 editorials, you're going to tell me once again what you're doing for your topic, and then also how you're going to go through and convince me it's connected. I recommend you do it in pencil, because if I go, no, I don't accept this, you're going to have to change it. And if it's written in pen, it's going to get really hard to read. If you know what you want to do for your other sections and your advertisements, you can write those down too. That's absolutely fine. You will have to eventually, no matter what. But as far as tomorrow goes, all I'm requiring are those first ones. The other ones are up to you from there. And of course, as always, having finished the book would make things significantly easier, because if you have no idea how the book ends, it will make things more challenging. Not that we'd be looking at anyone in particular on this particular part of it. Let's see from there. Oh, if you have a partner, you and your partner both turn in separate sheets. But hopefully they should be similar. So you probably want to talk to your partner to make sure that you guys have similar things as ideas of what you're doing. Cookie, did you have a question?
Oh yeah, I did.
What's that?
For the other sections, the movie guide, could you do 3 different ones for like the same movie idea, or do you have to do? Because don't you have to like do 3? Is it
3 different ones?
Yeah.
Because you have to give me like a review. I mean, if you wanted to give me a whole bunch of information like on a review, and then a different information on like I don't know, the background that connects to it, I guess you could. But I guess you couldn't. I mean, you couldn't do like 3 different versions of Dracula.
Well, no. I was talking about. So if you do like one movie idea, and then could you write like 3 different like reviews for it?
That should be fine, as long as they're fairly different enough that you cover like different information. That's fine with me.
Okay, thank you.
I can roll with that. Yes, dear.
So the first 3 are due tomorrow?
First 5.
Okay.
3 story ideas, 2 editorials. You
Wait,
with
what's
me on
the
that?
editorial?
I have no idea. I guess I should have talked about. Oh wait, we already did multiple times. Any other questions as far as that part goes? Yay! Then let's jump to gospel. If you have no other questions on the white part, you can put that to the side.
Wait, is this
Let's see, how far?
Page 13.
Let's see, the pictures I have in there for you are gospel according to Larry. There's the little picture that starts off. The picture from Walden, because we have the kid who wrote the book, Josh. He talked about Walden, and then there's the picture of the hippie, Henry David Thoreau. This is a special looking fellow. And then there was references to Gumby and Monty Python and Groundhog Day. That's what you guys didn't see anything there. And we've not gotten to this one yet. All right. And we are on page 12.
13.
We're going to back up to 12 because we should be at the beginning of Sermon 93. Yes, dear.
So, is this book kind of like nonfiction and it says it's real?
Correct.
Wait,
Mia.
did you read it in the hallway? I didn't read it.
If you want to, that's fine. And you're going to miss out on our discussion things, but that's up to you. Okay. Sermon number 93, page 12. Slip on your Gap jeans, your Nike t-shirts, your Reeboks, or maybe even your Cons if you think that makes you cool and ironic in a Kurt Cobain kind of way. Grab your Adidas backpack, ride to school on your Razor, drink your Poland Spring, eat your Power Bar, write a paper on your iMac. Slip on your Ralph Lauren windbreaker, buy the latest CD from Tower, check the caller ID to see who's on the phone, eat your Doritos, drink your Coke, stare at the TV till you're stupefied. Is there any time of the day when we're not being used and abused by the advertising companies? Can we have an inch of free space? Do you mind? Some ambitious kids rent their head space, the outside, not the inside, although the inside space is certainly emptier, to local companies by shaving ads into their hair for all their friends to see. It's just a matter of time before corporations figure out a way to sell you stuff while you're sleeping. Maybe some kind of, vitamin that releases visual and sonic enzymes that run like a ticker tape through your dreams. All the latest releases, now at Blockbuster. Cheesier nachos at Chili's. By the way, you're snoring. Am I the only one who sees the irony of sitting in lit class reading 1984, having a discussion of Big Brother, watching out for us like it's sometime way in the future? Some science fiction nightmare that's never really going to happen? Hello? Our lives couldn't be more dictated by the corporations if they gave our schools AV equipment in exchange for making us watch commercials in class. Oh yeah, they do that already. Never mind. Good thing Peter hadn't hung around for that one. By 2 a.m., I had 14 pages of notes for the new Larry Club. I had helped Beth for as long as possible, providing I could leave the club as soon as it got weird. Too many people at the same time usually sends me heading for the hills. When I added up all the things I'd done for Beth over the years, I figured it was more effort than they put into developing the last space shuttle. And completely and totally worth it. Jackson?
How's that irony?
Say, how is that irony?
Like lit and
Lit.
1984. Lit.
Gotcha. I can explain that in one moment. What he's pointing out, well, this sermon would be similar to what your editorials are. Because your editorial is where you're expressing your opinion and basically going on a small rant, which connects well to here, because that's essentially what Larry does on his website. His sermon is an editorial. For this one, what would be the point of this editorial? What is he trying to convince us of, if this were in editorial? Sammy?
That ads are bad.
There you go. The fact that ads are bad. And so he uses part of his argument. One, he mentions our lives couldn't be more dictated by corporations if they gave our schools audio-visual equipment in exchange for making us watch commercials in class. That's what this TV came from. There's a company called Channel One. And what Channel One does is they tell schools, we will put a TV in every classroom in your building as long as you show this show for us that has commercials in it. Charlia, what's up? What was that? Yeah.
Why is it so quiet?
It's not in
Well,
there.
it's still video.
Yeah, it's video.
Yeah, it is.
Why do
She's
you
gonna
keep
hear us
saying
when he
that?
watches this again. Oh wait, I just. Okay. Oh, you are beautiful.
No, they're not.
This what?
It's recording.
I know.
Okay, I'll ask later.
Not much I can do. So Channel One is a company that offered to put TVs in people's schools in exchange for you watching the commercials, which is why now, if you have 5th period and you have CNN Student News, it starts off every day saying commercial free because they are a competitor against Channel One. So Channel One offers to put those TVs in there. Whether he talks about that irony about the idea of sitting in lit class reading about 1984. 1984 is a book that talks about the government watching you the whole time. So the idea of the government putting TVs into schools to try and keep an eye on you. And that's what we have here is the idea of the government putting TVs in there. So it's the opposite of what you would expect. We're reading a book saying that you shouldn't have the governments do that while we sit there watching the government do that. Yeah.
How big is the TV?
We had Channel One. Our contract ran out a couple of years ago before you guys got here. And so once our contract ran out, we got to keep the TVs but no longer show Channel One. So that's why we switched over to CNN. But for the first several years of me teaching here, we had to show that every day.
Oh.
So now, like some classes don't show Channel One because it's not required. But when we had don't show CNN. But when we had Channel One, you had to show it every day because it was by contract with the company, and they would force feed you stupid little commercials that the kids hated every day too. Yay! Joining anything was not my usual thing by a long shot. It's like that show Survivor. I read in the paper that 50 million people watched it last night. Talk about a reason not to watch something. I don't know about you, but if 50 million people are doing something, I want to be doing something else big time. My stepfather's girlfriend calls me quirky, but most of the kids in my school would probably just call me weird. I'm used to it, though. It's always been that way. I mean, when you're sitting in 3rd grade wearing a paper pyramid on your head to see if the rays of energy will help you concentrate, you're getting some kids looking at you like you're cuckoo. The good news was, I never cared. Never came home crying. Never worried, oh gosh, what will the other kids think? Just plain old oblivious. There's something to be said about ignorance being bliss. Well, not much, of course, but something. When my mother was still alive, she used to threaten the principal for more services, extra tutors, more challenging work. He's 7 years old with an 8th grade math level. You're wasting his time making him add 2 plus 2, she'd yell. I'll homeschool him, I swear. Yeah, Mom. Sure. Maybe after a handful of Prozac and a lobotomy, God rest her soul. She was a tireless advocate for me, but she could sit still about as much as I could. I can picture her homeschooling me now. The two of us spelling vocabulary words as we rolled down the hill behind the cemetery. She was a character. Loud voice, loud music, loud clothes. So much fun. Until the ovarian cancer. Much less fun after that. For most of my life with her, the stimulation level was high. And that's always been a turn-on for me. I didn't crawl or walk. One day, I just got up and ran. My very first word, yelled, not spoken, from my car seat as we cruised down the highway, was fast. I said that in the first period, and this time I was like, don't say hallway, don't say hallway. Then I said hallway. As I cruised down the highway, was faster. And once I got hold of numbers, forget about it. There's a home video of me, probably about 2 years old, sitting in one of those jumpy seats in the kitchen. I'm in front of a refrigerator with colored magnetic numbers doing equations. I swear to God, this is true. 2 years old. My mother's talking to one of her girlfriends while she's taping me, saying, when most babies want formula, they're not talking about math. But it wasn't just numbers. It was learning in general that excited me. I'd go through phases where I devoured any information on the Civil War, Tibetan Buddhism, alpine mountaineering, and planting a perennial garden. Where's it? There. Sorry. I don't know if you know this, but you can lose a lot of friends talking nonstop about peat moss. The usual kid activities like baseball and soccer didn't interest me. I remember having huge fights with my mother while she held open the screen door and forced me to play outside with the neighborhood kids. If you don't go out and play with Carl and Brian right now, there'll be no science homework after dinner. Don't even think about taking my biology away. Josh, get out there and get some fresh air, or so help me God, I'm bringing those math books back to the library. She'd boot me out the door, kicking and screaming. As the years went by, I still preferred to work on my laptop in my hammock swing than to be at the high school Super Bowl. Beth used to call me the Wizard, like I was some overgrown Harry Potter. She thought I just twirled around, wasting time, visiting various dictionary sites to look up words like napiform. It means turnip-shaped, but you know that. You don't know what a turnip is. I put it up there for that's what turnip-shaped is. So if you want to go home and impress your parents, like, Mom, I'm looking so napiform today. They dig that all the time. You are not the average 17-year-old, she told me once. But then again, you weren't the average 15 or 12-year-old either. Okay, I had to agree with her there. It's very simple, really. I've only wanted one thing my whole life, to contribute, to help make the world a better place. All right, this sounds amazingly corny, but pushing civilization forward has always been my highest priority. Not with more technology, not with more money, but with more ideas, more meaning. When we studied Darwin last year, his ideas burned off the page. All of us, evolving, moving forward, consciously or not. It's probably what was in the back of my mind when I moved those plastic numbers across the refrigerator. It's what's on my mind as I type this now. If Larry was a way to delve into life's deeper meaning, count me in. Beth made a list of all the kids in our homeroom and who they'd been in a past life. We passed the list back and forth, filling in the blanks. Jack Furtado, Victorian cellist. Laura Newman, Russian cosmonaut, until the bell rang. Out in the hall, my enthusiasm pinned Beth to her locker. You're right! Everything Larry wrote about on his website had something to do with my life. Didn't I tell you? She couldn't have been happier. When I thought about what a consumer glutton my stepfather's girlfriend was, Larry wrote about shopaholics. When I missed my mother, he talked about attachment. It was uncanny. I don't even want to lay it on too thick. Beth's lips shone like hot mocha coffee. He puts into words exactly what we're thinking. She corrected herself immediately. He or she? But what's with the photos? I asked. Are we supposed to guess Larry's identity? Larry has less than 80 possessions. He posts them on his website, a few at a time, daring people to guess who he is. Right now, everyone's clueless. I mean, what can you tell from a pen and a hairbrush? Maybe you'll be lucky, and the next clue will be his or her license. Beth smiled. I'm sure Larry's saving that one for last. I asked her if she wanted to come over later and talk about my ideas for the club. She frowned. I can't. I have to study for that calculus test. Beth was a lot of things. Gorgeous, smart, determined. She also was a terrible liar. I stared her down. Okay. I promised I'd help my father with inventory. I kept staring. Darn it, Josh! I told Todd I'd help him clean his basement tonight, okay? Could you please explain how someone as committed to personal growth as you are can vacuum the basement of the class cretin just because she thinks she's in love with him? I don't want to hear it, Beth barked back. There's no one more inconsistent than you. You're a computer geek who hikes in the woods for days. You hate to buy things, yet you always go to Bloomingdale's. That's different. But forget it. You made your point. Do you guys know what Bloomingdale's is?
No.
It's a store. Macy's, Ellis Ayres, JCPenney. It's just a store like Bloomingdale's. So they're making fun of the fact that you're going to find out in a moment why he always goes to Bloomingdale's. But even though he's all don't go out and buy stuff and nature is good, he goes to Bloomingdale's all the time.
Nice.
That's different, but forget it. You made your point. She was just gearing up. Look, you're my best friend. We've been bailing each other out since grade school, but not everyone wants to go through life being a hermit, living in the world of ideas. She made quotation mark in her fingers when she said the word ideas. The quotation mark, the little ideas. It was one of the only things Beth did that drove me out of my mind. She finally got around to sputtering out the truth about Todd. He's the only cool guy who's ever liked me. I know he can act like a jerk, but do you mind if I let his popularity rub off on me for a while? For some reason, the bare-bones honesty of her plea only fueled my growing sense of annoyance. I'm out of here. I made those fake quotation marks around the word out, then walked toward lit class. You guys know what lit class is?
Literature.
Literature, or English class, for those high school fancy people. I could feel her behind me even before she spun me around to face her. I hate fighting with you. Hate it, hate it, hate it. We stood silently for a few minutes. It's just that Todd has to have the basement cleaned by the weekend or he can't play. I'm trying to have some school spirit for once. Plus, he knows I'm really good at organizing things. I wanted to tell her those skills might be put to better use than placing football and basketball trophies in chronological order. But I held my tongue. Instead, I told her I had lots to do, tons to do, was way too busy to deal with this paltry exchange. I shuffled away as nonchalantly as someone in deep despair can shuffle. My anxiety around Beth could be traced to one thing. I was never included in the endlessly rotating list of guys she had crushes on. Sam, Daniel, Andy, Speedy McDermott, Jack, now Todd. Never, ever me. If the choice were a 2-week exciting vacation in Europe with me or helping Todd clean his basement, I knew sadly what Beth's choice would be. Next stop in my fun-filled day, guidance with Miss Phillips. I tried to rally myself for the occasion by doing some standing push-ups against my locker. I hadn't even sat down when Miss Phillips got to the point. Have you thought about your major, Josh? Miss Phillips had the terrible habit of pushing her glasses up her nose with her middle finger. She did it so often, everyone in school just called her Flip-Off Phillips. I played with the zipper of my book bag and realized I was not giving her my full attention. Larry's sermon number 22. I looked her in the eyes. I was thinking about philosophy, the meaning of life, that sort of thing. From the point of view of someone who likes to read, likes to think like you do, it's a good choice, she said. But you realize the job prospects are pretty slim. I'm thinking after the Depression, after the apocalypse, there'll be lots of positions for people with depth and vision. She crinkled up her nose. Her glasses fell, and she flipped me the bird again. Josh, I'm not sure it makes sense to plan a career based on an apocalypse. What if there isn't one? Well, then I guess I'm screwed. I flashed her a big smile so she couldn't yell at me for the language. I suppose I'm being too materialistic. Studying philosophy at Princeton is a fine and worthy choice. I wasn't sure Miss Phillips's revelation came less from my sales pitch than it did from the fact that it was 10 to 11 and she was dying for a cigarette before her next appointment. I decided to let her off the nicotine hook. I gathered up my things and headed for the door. I've had a soft spot in my heart for Miss Phillips since last year, when I spotted her email address in her office and started up a chatty internet conversation with her, posing as a 40-year-old bachelor from Portland. I don't care what anyone says, I was not going through her desk. After months of quiet online flirtation, I invited her to meet me at the Borders coffee shop, only to watch her from the cookbook section. She waited more than 2 hours and 3 cappuccinos before she went home. That I felt bad about. Miss Phillips was usually tough as nails. I never thought she'd fall that hard. I decided to skip the rest of the day. The recurring vision of Beth dressed up like Snow White, singing as she swept Todd Terrific's basement was more than I could endure. I grabbed my camera from my locker and opted to check in with my mother instead. When my stepfather visited Mom, he headed for the cemetery. I, who knew her much better than he did, headed for somewhere that captured her spirit more than a pasture full of granite headstones, the makeup counter at Bloomingdale's. If you've never been to a makeup counter at Bloomingdale's, that's the makeup counter, where they put the little makeup on you in some little chairs that makes you feel all pretty. I mean, I've never done that myself, but I've seen that. I slogged through the slush, then grabbed the bus to Chestnut Hill. Ever since we lived in the Boston area, my mother had dragged me here once a month. The waft of perfumes hit me like the surge of memories. I plopped down in the tall seat at the Chanel counter. I think it's safe to say I was the only person in that department sitting in the lotus position. If you don't know the lotus position, I can't do this without hurting myself. I can do the tree position, that one's easy. The lotus is where you have the one foot that comes up on top of the other, and then you bring the other foot up and it goes on top of the knee. If I were to do that, it would require one leg to fall off. But to help you out, that fella is much more flexible than I am. So just imagine that young fellow looks like me, and that would be doing the lotus. Yes.
So does he go to Bloomingdale's because he wants memories
Of his mom. Because that, and you'll find out in a moment coming up, that's where he has the connections, because she used to go there all the time. And so he's like, she never went to a graveyard, so that doesn't make a connection. But she spent all of her time at Bloomingdale's, so that's why he makes that connection. Hello, Joshy. How's it going? Marlene, the beauty doctor, has been working here for more than 20 years. With her shiny helmet of dyed black hair and dark eyebrows penciled in for the ones she lost years ago, she was Mom's favorite salesperson. It's slow, so you can sit. If I get a client, you know the drill. I saluted, then leaned back to hang with Mom. My mother bailed on her wealthy parents' expectations as soon as she hit college. Instead of following in their Wall Street footsteps, she hitchhiked cross-country, worked tirelessly for civil rights, and made some bad choices in men. One thing from her Grosse Pointe background she couldn't walk away from, however, was her fondness for upscale moisturizers and creams. Grosse Pointe is a super ritzy neighborhood up in Michigan, so it just means her super ritzy, fancy background. She used to spend hours trying to look like she wore no makeup at all. She experimented with pencils and powders like a mad scientist, but always looked the same to me. I can remember perching on this stool as a preschooler, watching Marlene hand Mom tube after tube of lipstick. Mom would ask which color I preferred, consider my answer, and then buy whichever one she wanted anyway. I waited till Marlene rang someone up at the other end of the counter before I started talking. Okay, Mom, in a nutshell, Beth is cleaning Todd's basement. Peter is dragging me to their lasagna dinner at Catherine's, and I'm nowhere closer to changing the world. A woman with a leopard print hat eyed me as she walked by. I just feel like I'm waiting for my life to begin, that I've wasted 17 years. Then what? 4 years at Princeton? How does that help move civilization forward? Do you want to see our deep pore cleaning mask? Marlene inquired. I nodded. Whenever Marlene's boss circled by, I pretended I was a paying customer. If you ask me, you make it too hard on yourself. Stop worrying about civilization. Worry about staying out of trouble, making nice friends. She rubbed the mask on my face in small circles. I have nice friends. Well, one nice friend. One nice friend is all you really need. Marlene watched her boss get on the escalator, then wiped off my mask with a tissue. Here, she gathered up tiny bottles of free samples, put them in a small bag with handles, and gave it to me. You come back any time. I could see Marlene eyeing a potential customer hovering over the nail polish. I saluted again and left. In the shoe department, I tried on 4 pairs of sneakers, 3 pairs of loafers, and 5 pairs of boots before the salesperson deserted me. I circled by the makeup counter on my way out. Mom? I asked. A 50-ish woman in fishnets turned around and went back to what she was doing. Mom, you'll help me, right? With the whole change the world thing? Then I did what I always did when I needed an answer from my mother. I listened for the very next words someone said. A businessman talking on his cell phone provided her response. Yeah, of course I will. My grin spread ear to ear. When I said, thanks, Mom, the woman in fishnets turned around again. I tipped my woolen hat her way and headed out of the store. He'll do this quite a bit throughout the book. Whenever he needs advice and guidance, he'll go to Bloomingdale's and then ask his mom a question. He just asks it out loud and then just sits there and waits. And whoever he has, like the first person that talks, go walking by him, he uses that as like his mom talking through that person to answer his question. And that's his way of sort of like communicating to his dead mom. And so that's sort of his way of getting guidance. It's weird, but probably no more weird than sitting at a gravestone and talking to a pile of dirt and bones. So it's just his way of making the connection. And then on the next page you have Larry item number 8, which is his laptop. Oh, and they're going to talk about Humpty Dumpty. If you grew up in a place that does not have nursery rhymes, that's Humpty Dumpty. If you've never seen it before. Peter's girlfriend Catherine had a Humpty Dumpty fetish. She collected anything poor Mr. Dumpty had affixed himself to. Salt and pepper shakers, cookie jars, puzzles, mailboxes, light switches, vases, and bookends. You get the idea. Last Christmas, she gave Peter a Humpty Dumpty tie with clumsy Humpty tumbling down the front of it. She gave me a skateboard with Humpty written across it in lightning bolt letters. It frightened me so much, I buried it under a stack of newspapers in the garage. Then I just ended up giving it to the kid next door. Catherine was 40 pounds overweight, always smiling like the poster woman for fat, dumb, and happy jeans. Oh, did I just say that? Okay, horrible. Better read Larry's tolerance sermon again. She laughed nervously after everything we said and was putting in so much effort to be liked that once in a while, I actually found myself rooting for her. Ah, lasagna, my favorite. Peter dug into the casserole dish like it was the first meal he'd had in months. He and I are both better cooks than Catherine, and besides, she made lasagna every time we came over. Very nice, I said. Now, I've told her 50 times, I don't eat meat, but somehow that never seemed important enough to register on her radar screen. I filled my plate with lots of garlic bread and tomato sauce. I'm not sure if Peter was really interested in the zany anecdote Catherine filled our airspace with, something about mixed up files at work and her crazy boss, or if he just pretended she was a client. I don't know how she did it, but the conversation ended up where it always did, at eBay, and all the wonderful Humpty bargains Catherine was bidding on. I excused myself as soon as possible, saying I had lots of homework to do. As I walked into the cold night air, I banged my hand against the side of my head to empty out the cascade of Catherine's gibberish. By Porter Street, I could almost hear my own thoughts again. It's not like I was trying to walk by Beth's. My feet just somehow ended up there, just in time to catch her running up her driveway. I thought you were dusting Todd's collection of medals tonight. Give it a rest, Josh. I decided to lay off the topic until she felt like talking. We sat on her front steps and watched the flickering Christmas lights the Petersons should have taken down months ago. I hate to admit you may be right, she began. Todd definitely doesn't appreciate me. That's a giant duh, she shivered. I'll die if I end up being one of those women on talk shows complaining about their lives. Hey, I'll start a fight from the audience so the ratings will be high, I added. I could never have a normal conversation like this with Todd. I don't know why. Let's see. Because he's a moron? Because he thinks memorizing football plays is more important to the planet than physics or kindness? I kept my mouth shut and stared straight ahead at the Petersons' lights. Oh, I almost forgot. I opened my pack and took out the gift bag from Bloomingdale's. Oh, you visited your mom today. I wondered where you were, 5th period. And there we'll stop. Your homework? Not to read, but you have to do something. What do you have to do?
The outline.
Fill out